So we're back again today for another vlog, a virtual blog, vlog, whatever you want to call it. But yo, we're back again today. Now today we're going to be talking about something that goes through my mind. I have millions of ideas and things on my mind. And today we'll be talking about this. We're going to be talking about a what if. A what if. And some of you guys might not want to hear this, but it's coming out either way. What if. So today we'll be talking about a what if African Americans had their own country. And you know, this is not to exclude anybody else of African descent, because obviously you'd be welcome in that country and you'd be living there. But for the African Americans, you know, as far as being in this country for 2+ generations, 3+ generations, whatever it might be, right? So, or depending on how you look at it. But for African Americans, what would it be like to have our own country? What would our country be like if we had our own country? And you know, what would we do in our country? How would our country be ran? You know, what kind of establishments and what kind of life expectancy or embetterment of life could we expect in our country? What would we name our country? What would our country's flag be? So for me, I would like to see, if we had a country, I would like to see obviously our red, black, and green flag. That is already the Pan-African flag and the African American flag. But it's open to debate. We could have a different kind of flag. We could use an animal in our flag. We could use different colors in our flag. So what kind of flag do you think that we should use when we have our own country, or if we ever do have our own country, or if we did have our own country? And also, what would our anthem be? You know, what would it be about? Would our anthem be about our struggle? Would it be about our struggle plus our African heritage? Would it be about our struggle in America plus our African heritage? Would it be just an African heritage song? Should it even be in English? Should it be in an African language instead of in English language? And you know, what would we sing about? You know, what kind of system of government would we start up? Would we start up a democracy? You know, and in a democracy, would we start up a democracy like how we have in this country right now, to where it's a indirect democracy where you vote for a representative and the representative, then makes the decisions for the people? Or would we have a direct democracy where the majority vote wins, where if the majority of population votes on one subject and the majority of that population wants, whatever it is that they're voting for, then it wins. But if they lose, then it loses. Would we have democracies like that? Or would we have a oligarchy where small groups and leaders make decisions, for the whole group and run the government? And what kind of oligarchy would we have? Would we have a oligarchy that practices socialism, to where everybody shares everything that we have, so everything is shared equally, instead of excessive amounts of ownership for one person on certain things, or limits individuals of ownership, and shares everything equally throughout our country? Or would we have a communism type ran government where we use force, or the group of people use force to protect power and tell people what jobs to do? Or would we have the last form of government called autocracy? And so would we have that? Under that basically would be a monarch. Would we have a monarch, or would we have a, monarch is basically ran by a king, a queen, a king or a queen, or a king and a queen, and their family, and one person or peoples runs the government? Would we have the absolute monarch, where it's ran by one king or one queen with no rules and they have all the power? Or do we have a constitutional monarch where one king and one queen runs, or one king or one queen runs everything, but they still have to uphold to a constitution, that is made by the people? So what kind of government would we have if African Americans had their own country? What would be the name of our country? I like the name Sankofa, which means, it's like a Ghana word meaning to, or it's a Dinkin symbol, meaning to look back and grab. If you ever never seen, Sankofa, it's like a bird that has his neck turned around and is grabbing the egg behind him, so to look back and grab. Would we call our country Sankofa? What would we call our country? And what would be our national sport? Would it be basketball because we're so established in basketball here, but majority of the world outside of America, especially in the black world, loves soccer, or football. For anybody who's watching, I want to get mad because I'd say soccer because I'm from America, but football or soccer. Or would our national sport be, one of our favorite sports be basketball, like I said, or football, American football, not soccer in America, but football everywhere else, but American football, you throw the ball like that. Would it be hockey? Would it be track? Would it be golf? What would it be? And think about the ways that we could economically strive and get better if we were bringing all the money from the NBA players, the African descent NBA players, and we started a league that could have other races in it too. But first and foremost, the owners, the league, the players would obviously predominantly be black because they're in a black country. Think about that. Think about the economic power that we would have. Think about if all football players that were of African descent went to that country and played in that country's, teams, football teams, soccer teams, NFL teams, and we were always put first. Now, what would we do when we went to that? When we went to our country, our new country, would we have some kind of limitations to who we let in? Do we want to let in all the bad people of African descent in our country? Even though every country has crime, you can never get away from that. But what would we do when we first create our country? Would we create a law system? And so I guess those questions are, questions that need to be asked. And as far as the law system, I guess some of that would have to do with what kind of government you're going to establish. But what else could we do? What else would we do? What would be our economical natural resources or our economical base and how to run the country and how to keep the country? Would we have a system like inflation? Would we have strict laws for people to migrate and become citizens in our country? Would we even have what else? Would we have a way that we develop technology? Would we invest more money in technology, or would we invest more money in infrastructure? Obviously, that's part of technology, depending on what kind of infrastructure you're talking about. Would we invest money into, Africa? Would we invest money? Who would we do business with? Who would we try to free? What kind of business would our private sectors or our government's defense? What kind of endeavors and what kind of things would we do with them? Would we send them to help other African descent countries be free and to truly be free, or would we get involved with the other world's politics, which it's sort of just the way it is nowadays? You sort of have to get involved with them, but you don't necessarily have to. Where would it be located at? Would it be in some part of North America? Would it be in the Caribbean? Would it be South America? Would it even be back in Africa? Sort of like how Liberia is in a way, and how that was started and by different groups of people like African Americans that were returning home and different things of that nature. What would we do in our own country? If we had our own country, would it be better? Would we not have so much black on black crime? Would we see that it's time for us to understand that we have our own now and we don't have to really be put second on the list in how we get treated? So would we have as much crime as what we do currently? Who would be our allies? Who would not be our allies? Who would be our enemies? Who would not be our enemies? And things like this. So this was a brainstorming vlog about our own country. What would be our morals? Would we allow a lot of sex, a lot of drugs on TV? Would we allow certain things? Would our school systems teach our history, our full history, not just American history, but history in Africa, Brazil, Jamaica, Asia, India, New Zealand, Australia, around the Indonesian area, around the Sri Lanka area in India? Would it really teach our history about all black people around the world? And what would we do in our country? What would we establish in our country? Would we feel safer in our country? Would we Would we allow certain things to let our country get more polluted or less polluted? And all these kind of things. So I was just brainstorming. I just want to know what you guys would, think about our country and what would be a good name, and how would we go about running our own country, and what do you think about African Americans having their own country? Is that really our holy grail to being free and to truly being who we are and to govern ourselves? Because we've done it in the past, we can do it. So there's no question that black people can't govern themselves.
What's up, what's up?
Hey!
Shalom.
What up?
Hi.
Africa!